Hi everyone, Dean here. Welcome back to Crochet and Crime, where I crochet and tell true crime stories. Today, we're doing part 2 of the Jeffrey Dahmer story. So yeah, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time. Last video, it was we left off where he unalived what he deemed as an exceptionally attractive victim. Yeah. Alright, thank you all. Bye. Jeffrey got his own apartment in Milwaukee, got himself his 6th victim, and he got a little camera where he would take photos before the dismemberment. And he kept the skull and put it next to the previous victim's skull. Jeffrey had only 2 sleeping pills left for this next victim, so he just slit his throat. Done. He did his little routine, took some pictures. He actually took some flesh and organs from this victim and put them in his refrigerator. And for his victim he deemed ugly, he didn't take any photos until after the dismemberment. His next victim, he drugged him, and instead of his normal routine, he drilled a hole in his head and poured hydrochloric acid in it. And when he drilled into this victim, the victim actually woke up, and this created that satisfaction that Jeffrey was looking for. Like, he wanted that rush of this submissive man in this very vulnerable, uncomfortable state. And whenever Jeffrey was done celebrating in his head about this, the victim spoke and said, "I have a headache. What time is it?" Yeah, so Jeffrey freaked out and just strangled him. He kept the skull, of course, because he drilled a hole through it, and he was super happy about it. Residents of the apartment complained of a stench and loud noises, so they told the manager, and the manager called Jeffrey, and Jeffrey told him that his fridge broke, and the manager was like, okay, hung up. Next week, still getting complaints, so the manager called Jeffrey, and he was like, oh, my tropical fish died, and so it created that smell. Jeffrey picked up a young man and took him to his apartment, drugged him, and took him to his room, where he had a victim lying on the floor. The kid sees this, and before he could properly freak out, he passes out. And so Jeffrey drills a hole in his head, lays next to the kid, leaves, gets alcohol, comes back and sees the kid on the street, naked, and there are 3 women surrounding him, asking if he's okay, but he can't really talk. He had a hole in his head, and he was drugged. Jeffrey tells the ladies that the boy is his friend, and he tries to grab the child, but the ladies don't let him, and they suspect that he was lying. They had called the police, and the police showed up, and Jeffrey explained his side, and one of the ladies was furious, so she pulls an officer aside, says that this doesn't seem right, the boy's bleeding, he doesn't want to go with Jeffrey, and the officer basically tells her to shut up and butt out. So Jeffrey is released with the young boy, and they go back to his place, and Jeffrey pours acid in the kid's brain, and it kills him almost instantly. Jeffrey called out of work to dismember the 2 bodies in his apartment. Then he got 3 more victims to come to his place, drugged them, killed them, and he called into work to dismember them. He was fired from his job, which made him kill 1 more person. And Jeffrey went to a bar, talked to 3 guys, and offered them money to keep him company. One of the guys was like, hell yeah. So they went to his apartment, and the guy got a whiff of stank. That was Dahmer's apartment. He looked further and saw boxes of acid, and when he asked Jeffrey was like, I clean bricks with them. They go to his room, and the victim sees a big old drum in the corner, which was definitely the main source of the stench. Jeffrey, at some point, puts handcuffs on the victim to have some fun time, but the victim was like, no. So he brushes it off, and both of them sit on the bed, and Jeffrey, our little romantic, pulls this little flirty move. I'm gonna rip your heart out. What the fuck? He was a flirt, let me tell ya. So the victim tries to plan an escape, but he prefers to keep his heart in his chest. So he asks Jeffrey to use his bathroom. He does. Can't find a window. Goes back out. A few minutes later, he has to go back to the bathroom again. And this time when he comes out, Jeffrey is not paying attention, so the victim punches him and runs out the front door. Finds two officers, and they go back to Jeffrey's apartment to get the keys for the handcuffs. Jeffrey is trying to get them to go away and basically saying he'll get the keys himself, but the officers are like, let us look for it. And one of the officers saw the photos of the victims, like the little Polaroid photos, and Jeffrey tries to brush it off and tries fighting the officers and resists his arrests. So the officers explored Jeffrey's apartment further after calling for backup. He saw a severed head in the refrigerator, and when more officers showed up, they counted a total of 4 severed heads in the kitchen alone. They found multiple skulls scattered around the apartment, and in that drum I mentioned earlier, it had torsos dissolving in acid. So Jeffrey was arrested, and he confessed to killing 16 men, and on January 30th, 1992, his trial began for 15 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life plus 70 years, and on November 28th, 1994, Jeffrey was found on the floor. He had suffered major head trauma, and he was beaten with a metal bar. Jeffrey was still alive when they found him, and he was rushed to a hospital, but was pronounced dead 1 hour later. I'm gonna finish this up and I'll be right back. Alright, here I am with the finished product, and you might be wondering, Dean, what the hell are you showing me? It's a top for this little basket I made, and it's a little mushroom. I have all my crochet hooks, crochet stitch things. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this story, and yeah, if you have any true crime stories you want me to cover, please put those down in the comments below. I also want to give a huge thank you to everyone who watched my last video. We got it up to over 100 views, which is absolutely insane. I want to thank all of you who watched it, who liked it, and who shared it all to your friends. I am so thankful for you guys. Thank you all so much. I hope to see you next week. Bye!